Please turn off your cell phones so as not to disturb the meeting, and rise for the rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, it is right.
Mr. Wright, would you? Reverend Gary Taylor is not here yet, so we're going to have Reverend Wright do the invocation.
Pray with me. Well, Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to gather together as a board. Thank you, Lord, for a free country where we can express our faith, our beliefs, where we can engage in the political process without fear of any kind of retaliation. Lord, a lot is before us today, so give us wisdom. Lord, we thank you for this team that's been assembled. We thank you for every person who works in our district and for every student that we have the blessing of impacting. Father, be with us and give us wisdom as we go through this meeting. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Mr. Nels Parson.
Good afternoon.
Good
Afternoon.
All right, let's see if I can figure this out. Looks hitting the accept, all right.
Turn your phone off.
Stop. Cancel.
Turn your phone off.
Sorry,
Phone's off.
Yeah, right.
yes? That one? Yes. They've got me on the agenda as talking about the bright futures, but actually, that's what initiated what I'm going to come and talk to you this afternoon about, and that is a college readiness program. Just to recap, I think every one of you should have received an email from me about 2 weeks ago regarding my efforts to try to make some legislative changes to the Bright Future Scholarship after the dramatic increase in scores that took place this past year, which in my opinion made seniors, basically you changed the rules of the game in the third quarter, and it was a little bit disconcerting, particularly when a particular student I knew that graduated with a 4.58 GPA did not qualify. And so that led me to start asking some questions. And I went through our legislative delegation, which of course this year was one person, and through Representative Van Zant, he directed me to get with Representative O'Toole, the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, and started making some inquiries. And their committee staff started having the Department of Education's Office of Student Financial Assistance do an analysis run and ask how many students that graduated in 2014 with a 3.5 or better GPA did not qualify this past year for Bright Futures. 12,849 in this state. Nearly 8,000 of those, had they graduated a year before, would have received Bright Futures.
See, they should have been grandfathered
The
in.
particular student that I talked about missed the ACT by 1 point. This made it a dramatic impact to most parents between $8,000 and $12,000 over the life of this scholarship. That was a big thing. So anyway, as you saw through my email, I went through and tried to submit some bill amendments to 2 pending Bright Futures bills. Went through the process, didn't get too far. Suffice it to say that I'm not too enthused with our state legislators. That said, I've accepted the fact that this is where we're at. This is what it's going to require. And so I'm coming before you today to offer some suggestions and some ideas about what I think would help Putnam County students be better prepared for this process. I come before you and go ahead and say I'm not an educator, don't have that training, not an academic. I'm simply bringing to you my perspective as an involved parent going through this process. I had a child that went through the process last year, and I've got another child who'll be going through it in the next couple of years as he gets into his junior year. So from the perspective of a high school parent, to me, there's just 3 basic outcomes of high school. We're either trying to prepare students to go on to higher education, we're trying to train them to go on for vocational technical schools, or we're getting them to graduate from high school and prepare for the workforce or going into the military. I just will touch on a couple of things that I think there's some possibilities, and I don't want to really dwell on these today, for some expansion on some vocational programs that would provide some career focus for better training for both vocational and technical schools. Some of this could be modeled after what I remember going through in the military, the armed services vocational aptitude test. There's models already out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I think there's some applications that we could use within our county. Another aspect is the high school proficiency certification program, where we could take and hopefully provide some basic skill levels and have that recognized through our business leaders through a specific certification program that would allow them not to only come out with a high school diploma, but also some basic skills that perhaps business leaders could then say they know that these folks are coming in and maybe they can offer them something more than a minimum wage job. So I'll probably be coming back in front of you at sometime in the future to share some of those ideas. But I want to go ahead and go on to what I've learned with college readiness and what I think I've observed within our county, at least at my specific high school. Most colleges require students' applications to be submitted by about November of their senior year in high school. If you wait till your springtime in high school to start doing your college applications, you're behind the wave of what we're competing with on other counties. So I'm an outcome-oriented person. I felt like let's determine that as our time frame and work backwards from there to see what we need to do in this county. I've identified what I consider a 5-step program that I think may address some of these issues and help us be better prepared for these students. Includes a college readiness orientation workshops. That I'll go more into detail on all these 5 steps. How AP and dual enrollment courses apply. ACT, SAT prep testing for the actual testing to help better meet the Bright Futures new requirements. Offering college visitation opportunities within our county for students. And then the applications for both college and scholarships for developing how to develop applications and written essays. And I'll go into detail on all these 5 points. Let me just go down. So on the workshops, have one in the fall. This will be actually predominantly more as a catch-up workshop. I'll go more into detail of the spring workshop in a minute. But this would be for juniors and seniors that didn't have workshops in their previous experience that would help them better understand what they're going to need for college readiness and application, how they should be, particularly on juniors, looking at what they need to be setting up for developing a curriculum of dual enrollment courses, what opportunities are there to help them better test for ACT and SAT, and also calendar timeframes of what the colleges require and scholarship requires for these applications. The spring semester, I actually got broken up into 2 workshops. One would be where it'd be specifically for sophomores, that this is the true orientation. This is now to say, okay, you guys, we're really letting you know now that you've got 2 years to start working on this process. This is the time that you're allowed to start working on dual enrollment courses. And so this is what you need to know, and it gives them the overall complete outline. But for juniors, you're going to have a specific workshop, and I'll go into more detail on this in a minute, on how to write college applications and the associated writing essays. Once again, dual enrollment and the advanced placement courses. To understand how beneficial that is to take advantage of that program. I was so happy to see Interlochen High School finally start AP courses this past year. They have 1. They're offering, it's my understanding, 2 more this next year. This is what we have to have if we're going to be competitive with counties outside. I also want to look at opportunities because transportation is an issue, particularly for kids from Interlochen High School and from Crescent City High School to attend dual enrollment courses at the St. Johns River campus to make that drive, because transportation is up to the students to get there. So if a guidance counselor knew you had enough students that are signing up for a particular course, maybe it would be more cost efficient for the district to possibly compensate the school to cover the instructor's travel costs for the instructor to go to the high school campus. And third opportunity that we ought to be looking at is taking advantage that more and more colleges, including our state colleges, are offering online courses. And let's make sure we've got labs available for students that don't have computers or Wi-Fi opportunities at home to be able to take these courses while they're on the high school campus. If we provided those three things, that would very much add to the opportunity, and I don't think any of these are that costly to actually look at. Interesting enough, I had my son, who's a sophomore in high school, go ahead and take the ACT back in March, just so he could kind of get a feel what it's about, and have a better understanding, and for us to understand where he's at, so we had a work plan for the next year and a half, what we need to work on with him to take. While I was waiting for him to sign up, I was waiting in the lobby there, the test was being offered at Palaca High School, and I looked up on their bulletin board, and I noticed a flyer there that talked about a program for ACT, SAT boot camps called Gear Up. So when I got back home, I went online and looked up Gear Up. And interesting enough, one of the few counties that's offered is Putnam County, at the Palaca High School and Crescent City High School. So when I inquired with my guidance counselor at the Interlochen High School why we didn't have that program, and he had established his own program, I gotta give him credit. He's really worked hard. I can't say enough about the guidance counselor at Interlochen High School, how good he's been to work with. But that said, he said he had sent a couple students to there, and they were turned away because they weren't Palaca High School students. That was not acceptable. That is not the answer I want to hear. And that's something we need to make sure that's either hopefully just a matter of miscommunications or a misinterpretation, but either it needs to be offered at Interlochen High School, or if it's more cost efficient, allow Interlochen High School students to go to Palaca High School to take these opportunities at these workshops.
Do you know who told him it wasn't?
I do not.
You don't, okay.
The other thing that I hope to see developed is some scholarships, and hopefully through private and business donations, to fund a small scholarship for each school to offer assistance to students that would meet a need-based, financial need-based, that if they needed to retake test, the schools offer one ACT test free at the school for juniors, but if they don't meet the Bright Futures criteria, then they're on their own. The ACT test is now $38 for the basic test. If you add the writing component, you're now over $50. If the student has to take this more than 1 or 2 times, then this can be very costly, and you're not even counting the travel to wherever the tests are being offered. So I'm hoping to have that be established, and I always believe that somebody should put their money where their mouth is. So I gave Ms. Douglas an envelope, and she has in her hands a small donation. My wife and I are establishing a scholarship at Interlochen High School to hopefully help at least a half a dozen students this coming year.
And actually, I have the check, and after you were finished, I was gonna say thank you, and what you want the money to be spent on, and the Putnam County School District is very appreciative of your donation, and we will put it to good use.
Thank you. The fourth step of the program is the opportunity for students to visit colleges. I think this is important. I know it was for us when we took our child around. I know this isn't always the opportunity for a lot of students, and so I'm hoping that there's some possible school bus trips that could be organized. It doesn't necessarily need to be from each school. It may be where there could be one bus out of Palaca that the 3 high schools, or if Cambridge students wanted to attend also, could come to and take and go to the various colleges. I had a list here of colleges within an hour's drive of Palaca, kind of a example of different types that they could visit. These should be structured visits. It shouldn't be just a willy-nilly field trip. These kids should be attending these orientation workshops I've talked about, and it should be where the college knows they're coming, have an advisor to meet with them, and a financial aid officer also. And then fifth and final step is the development of college applications and essays. As I said, this would be done in the spring workshop for juniors. What I'm suggesting is they would physically be starting to fill out applications for the college, but also have 3 specific writing assignments. They're going to find out essays are part of the deal for both college applications and for scholarships. So I'm saying this as a spring and or summer writing assignment, specific writing assignment, that they would have an essay that's a biography on themselves and their aspirations, a subject of their interest or planned major, and a current news issue in their proposed resolution. One of the things that we heard on a repeated occasion as we went around and visited different colleges is there's a writing style called the Chicago writing style. I don't know what the Chicago writing style is, but the colleges are becoming where that's what they want. So we need to find what that is and make that a part of the training we're offering our students to make sure that they've got this in their resume. These applications and essays would be completed no later than August of their senior years. What I'm recommending would be reviewed by a specific teacher, for example, a composition teacher, but whatever the school would feel would be the appropriate person to review these. They would be corrected and ready to go by September, so the students can be ready to go to submit their college applications and associated essays in October to meet the deadlines that most of these colleges wanted. For one thing, that gets them on the early, not only the early application, but if they're accepted, their early registration cycle if they want, which most of the time is about half of what the regular college registration. That normally saves at least a couple $100 right there on just the registration at the specific college. So that would help them get into that time frame. These essay templates could also be used for scholarship applications. And that pretty well summarizes what I want to put in front of you today. Just want to say that I feel like we're competing with counties that have parents that's got the wherewithal from a financial standpoint, that they're putting their students through these types of programs that are costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I feel like with a little bit of effort, we can be as competitive with them as anybody. We don't need to be held back by our county. As far as I know, we've got a limited tax base. For one thing I've found as being involved as I've been in our schools, what we don't have in a tax base that we can support through schools, we have more than made up through by school administrators and teachers. I can't thank you for enough for the amount of the types of teachers that's taught my children. They've been wonderful, and I don't have any reservation for that. So I want to try to provide them some tools from a parental standpoint of what I think would be helpful for both me and other parents of students in this county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane, go ahead.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I just want to mention, as a former guidance counselor, you want to stay up here?
Yeah, because we may want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Yeah. As a former counselor at Palatka High School, we do all of these things that you've mentioned. Starting in actually the end of the 8th grade year, we start talking about these things. And then when they come over as 9th graders, each of the counselors works with them. For instance, starting with the plan or in the PSAT in the 10th grade year, that's an indicator of what they need to work on, if anything, to be able to score high enough on the SAT or the ACT. Our English teachers, beginning in their junior year, work on writing college essays. It is a requirement during the first 9 weeks of their senior year to turn that in. But you really have to wait to do the final one when you see what the college essay questions they ask, because you really don't know, and it changes every year, typically.
That's correct.
But at least they're getting in the habit of how to write that Chicago style.
That's right.
Write those essays. We do, I think, have labs in each of our high schools where the students that don't have computers at home can do their online dual enrollment courses. And if we don't, we need to. Even in the library, they could go in there and work on those. Another thing, and I know what you're talking about, the boot camp. That was done under the Gear Up grant, and Palatka High School, I think, and Crescent City High School were the two high schools that got that Gear Up grant. And I wasn't on the board then, so I don't know what that process was. But if they were turned away, it was because they had to pre-register for that camp, right, Renee? And so they would have enough materials available for the students that were there. I'm sure they would have loved for them to have been there, had they known they were coming. So I don't know, like you said, that could have been some miscommunication there. We also have at Palatka High School every year a scholarship night where we invite all of the students and all of the parents to come in. We tell them about every available scholarship that we know of, how to fill out the FAFSA, which is very important. You know, you have to fill that out to get any kind of financial aid, Pell Grants or whatever. And I have to tell you that the turnout is usually very low. You know, we put a lot of work into those workshops, and then nobody comes. It's very discouraging. Also, you mentioned the field trips, and that is a wonderful idea. I know that Palatka High School, through this Gear Up grant and at other times, we have taken students to the University of Florida, University of South Florida, UCF, Flagler, St. John's River State College, which I'd like to put in a plug for because it's a great school. They all county high schools send their kids out there junior and senior year? Starting in the 8th grade.
To the one here.
Yes, to the campus here, which, you know, is a great place to get your AA. So we are doing these things. We just need to be doing them in all of our high schools. So every student has the same opportunities. But I have to tell you that our guidance counselors are overwhelmed. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a counselor yesterday, actually, saying, you know, I wish we could have a counselor at each school that does just these things, because they're spending their time making sure every kid has the credits they need to graduate, making sure they've passed the FCAT or the FSA, making sure they've signed up for the ACT or the SAT. There's just not enough hours in the day. And I do believe that you're right when you say it wouldn't take much money to help this process along if we could just find it.
You had two facets to it that I saw. Number one being the legislative funding. You mentioned that you had a certain grade point average in one year and they changed it the next year. Is that correct?
Yes, last year it was risen by.
Right, they didn't
by 4
grandfather the
points.
kids
4 points,
in.
and that knocked out 8,000 students.
Right.
And they do that because it falls back on school districts, and you don't really realize they're still saying they're putting all this money to education, but they've withdrawn it from Bright Futures and they're putting it
Right,
somewhere
they
else.
don't want to pay the money,
And they don't want to pay the money, and
That's
so
exactly.
you've got
bottom line.
You've got the legislative problem, and then this other stuff is just stuff. It's, if we had Helen here, and maybe Renee would be the one to answer it, is maybe coordinating a little better on what's going on if your child's having a problem at interlocking. You know, where there's a will, there's a way, and we'll try to find out, and that just needs to be tightened down, and we need to have somebody here that could, like Ms. Crawford was saying, to, every child should have the same opportunity. Now, we've had years where we couldn't fund a welding class at all 3 schools or different things like that, but they should all have the same opportunities, certainly on academics. And that's something we'll look at. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nels.
Thank you, that was
very much.
wonderful.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Next on the agenda is the presentation of the Involved Parent of the Month Award. Ms. Gilliard.
Oh, gosh, yeah, we are doing as much as we can.
That's just
Yeah.
moving at 4 points and 8,000 kids, they don't have to pay them. It just, it's a crime.
Good afternoon to each of you, to the board members and the chairperson of the board, and to all of the parents and whomever else is in our
In the
audience.
house.
Yes. Mrs. Brianna Hall, will you please come forward with Skylar? The Putnam County School District involved parent for May. And these are quotes taken from Mellon Elementary. Go in the middle so you can get a picture of her. Mrs. Hall has a huge heart and a willingness to help in any way that she can. Her daughter Skylar is in kindergarten at Mellon Elementary. Mrs. Hall and her family attends every event that is sponsored at Mellon. She's always asking the teachers if there's anything that she could help them with in their classes Or are there any students that may need her help in her area of expertise? Whenever needed, she alters her own daily schedule to assist at the front desk when the office is crowded, and she has done some clerical work for them too. Mrs. Hall can be counted on to assist with all school-wide screenings, calmly and swiftly moving students from classes to the screening room and then back to their class. To say she is an asset to Mellon Elementary is an understatement. The Mellon staff believes she's the best thing since sliced bread. Mrs. Brianna Hall deserves this recognition for her willingness to help our schools to be the best they can be. Volunteers are not paid, not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. The volunteer is one with a heart so sincere. No task too large, no task too small. Who would help with anything at all? Who would be there in the morning light or help in the dark of night? The volunteer, our extra hand, on whose future our children stand. Never anyone so dear as a Mellon Elementary volunteer. Thank you, Mrs. Hall. They love you, and we do too.
Congratulations.
I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but she's one of my former students.
She rose up, no, you didn't, she
I
rose
can
above it.
assure
She
you,
rose
you
above
had
it.
nothing to do with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. I think it's in spite of it, Jim.
Okay, moving right along, we are
Public comment.
to the public comment portion. I received no cards, so what I would assume we have no public comments, and we will go on to the consent agenda. Anybody from the public want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Board members, Ms. Crawford?
No,
No.
you do. I thought you were doing it.
I'm good.
I always have something, sorry.
I would be disappointed if
It's
you did.
okay.
I need to leave at 5, so I won't be over anything.
Yeah.
I've got, E5, F6, 7, and 8.
E5 and F
6, 7, and 8.
6, 7, and 8, okay?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items E5, F6, F7, and F8.
Second?
Motion is second.
Motion and second on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. The first thing on the agenda is our bus contract, summer transportation to St. John's River State College. And I know we do this every year. And I've been here many years, and it's still $1. And I'm just wondering if we want to raise it, because our maintenance costs go up, our bus expenses, our drivers are paid more, everything. So I just thought that we might want to, sorry, Jane, bump that up a little bit.
Oh, it's not my money. That's fine.
You know, so that we're adequately compensated. I don't mind using our buses and stuff for the college, that's fine, but I do mind if we're taking money out of our kids' education because we're not getting paid enough for our costs. I don't know who would review this, but I really would like to table this if possible.
How many buses do we use?
100?
100 buses?
Oh, not for this.
Oh,
I thought we, meaning
no,
we.
I meant for that summer program.
That I don't know.
Jim, you may can help me, but Florida law allows public school buses to be used for a variety of things, from hauling, I believe, handicapped students to, or handicapped citizens, and in certain,
Yes, sir.
recommended areas. So I don't have a problem staying with this as long as we let President Pickens know that we're gonna need all the dual enrollment help we shall ask for.
Is that called a bargain, or is that called a threat?
That's kinda like, Ms. Crawford's here, and she's a part-time employee out there, so I'm sure she'll carry that message to her.
Are we not getting the help we need from the college?
No,
No,
I think
we're
getting
paying for
but
it
if we- I'm saying, I think we can continue in this relationship, and they won't,
But we still need to be compensated for what it costs us. I don't wanna take money out of K through 12
Right.
kitty and put it in the college's kitty.
Is this the same contract we had last summer?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
It's been this is the sixth
Oh,
one
yeah,
I've
we
seen
need
at $1. a mile. So I'm just saying,
Well, not suggesting that they would, but they could increase rates in another area. I'm just
fine.
telling you.
no, that's
Well,
fine.
it's, if we don't ask, we're not gonna know.
Mr. Simons is at a Fin meeting in Tampa. When he gets back, I will sit down with him and make sure that this $1 per mile covers all the costs, that we're not absorbing any of the costs. If it's not, then we'll bring it back,
With an amendment, we can amend
with
it.
with an amendment that says if we have to raise it to $1.50 or $1.25 or $1.15 or whatever.
Sounds great.
To totally cover the costs, I don't see any
So
issue
shall
with that.
shall I entertain a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I move we.
Yes, ma'am.
I move we accept E5 with the understanding that could be a provisional amendment coming.
Second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and second on the floor. Is there any further discussion?
I will say that I know that this is the same rate that we charge for every field trip, and when it's $1 and then the salary of the, so, are we considering them part of our students? Because when we charge to go to the zoo and the class, I just don't want that. I do not, that's the last thing I wanna say, oh, we're gonna, all extracurricular.
No,
just
no.
this
We're just dealing with this contract.
Just
We're
this
taking our kids out there for their program, but they're hiring us to transport them,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
So that's all it is.
it's just our kids, just like the same as this field trip.
We're taking all the college students to the zoo.
Oh, it's
We
college
would need the
students.
bus to
No,
depart Palaca by
it's-
7:45 a.m. each day to go pick up students in Green Cove Springs and bring them back to our St. John River State Palaca campus by 9:30. So that's what we're doing. We're going and picking up
we can
Green
do
Cove.
Well, we're getting Clay County kids.
Right, but we're Putnam County.
Oh, I gotcha.
Right.
Okay, then that's good.
And they could enter into an agreement with Clay County the same way. So-
Right, and then we wouldn't be losing money.
And Mr. Simons just sent me a text, and I know I'm not supposed to be doing that during the meeting,
He
but
said,
he said, it involves one bus.
One bus.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve this contract with the understanding that Mr. Simons is gonna look into that dollar cost for us. But we'll approve it as is for now.
okay,
Motion and second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say no. Motion carries 5-0. I don't know what's next. Quarterly investment report,
6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, I had a question about
F6. Shannon. Rhonda, today's her birthday, by the way, Rhonda, so if you want to flood her with emails, you can flood her with emails and Facebook happy birthdays. And she's not here because she's on and Rhonda, I've got this one in the next two, so not Rhonda, Shannon.
Let's
I'm
get her to
sorry.
come up, so.
Yeah, she has to come up, I know, because David wants to embarrass you.
I
He
wanna
told me
s-
that a couple
You're-
hours ago.
You're in training, so you have to really rise to the occasion.
This is a simple one. I just noticed that we have money in Florida Community Bank paying us 0.45%, and then we have money in Capital City Bank paying us 0.10, which is less than a quarter. Is there a reason we have some in that low-paying interest? It's half.
Well, Capital City Bank is where we keep our cash, and then Florida Community Bank is where we have our investments.
So the cash flows in and out, and we get the lower rate, but the investments we have to leave untouched for a while?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve.
Second?
okay.
Any further discussion? Motion second on the floor. All those in favor of approving item F6 signify by saying yes. Aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Carries 5-0. Financial report, a couple of questions. Revenues and funding. On summary of cash and investments, it says capital projects fund, $4.2 million, and I'm just wondering, I guess what that is. Is that our capital projects account, and we
Yeah,
have
those are our
invest-
capital improvement funds, and that money currently, as of that time, was sitting in
at the end of
investments.
April. Gotcha. And then,
And they would be in the, they'd be gaining what's called arbitrage, interest, the capital funding.
That money was in the same investment
Oh,
account as
okay.
any other.
All right.
Also, we amended our budget for a TIF payout of $275,000. This is on the general fund statement of expenditures by objects.
What page is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh,
It's
fine.
general fund.
Did you
sta-
change, that was
This
7.
is
Did you go
item,
to 8?
this is 7 I'm on.
Still 7?
Yes,
Okay.
You know, F7.
sorry.
All right. Okay, I got it.
What do we get
It's
$277,000 a year in rentals from? Do you know? Nobody seems to have been able to answer.
Wait, where do you
On,
s-
again, statement of expenditures by object.
Okay.
Oh, that's expense, 207. What are we renting for $277? That's even
Is that like
worse.
copiers, everything that,
Yeah.
Oh, the copiers
The
are in on
warehouse and the warehouse.
yeah, in the
that? Oh,
warehouse?
the warehouse is, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's a small part. I think it's our copiers, and I would love to see us do something, but that's not your thing. One last is,
Did you say you have it, what about the question for the TIF payout? Was
yeah,
that-
what,
That was, we didn't have, we had an additional money in the grant that wasn't being reflected in Skyward at the time.
great.
So we just
So we
increased
just got
it.
that, and we can finish out the grant with it. That grant is over at the end of this school year, is that correct? June 30th?
Well, I think it goes through September.
Okay, because we have to spend the money, I
Yes.
guess, yeah. That's all I have on that one, thank you. I'll entertain, I'm sorry, I just have questions.
Okay, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move we approve F7.
I
There's a
second.
motion, thank you. There's a motion and a second on the floor to approve the financial report for April 2015, item F7. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries 5-0. No laughing allowed.
Okay.
She was videoing me.
Okay, now, the budget amendments. Okay.
And I'll answer that the best I can. Rhonda does do those. but-
Okay, then you may not be able to answer my question because it's the fund balance I'm concerned with, and
Is it gotten too low?
we just, I don't know.
She said the main reason though for the for the change in fund balance was due to the fourth calculation, which uses the February FTE count. So she had to adjust based
Well,
on
I
that.
understand that, but it went up. Our fund balance is now up from where it was, and I'm trying to find it, I apologize. It's way up. There it is. Unreserved fund balance got $372,000 added to it. This financial statement. Does anybody see that on
I
general
saw it
fund
yesterday.
operating resolution number 40? It's the page resolution number 40. Keep going under that, or it's page 3. Resolution number 40, we went from 21,000
Oh, to
Yeah.
394. Do you know? I do. Oh, would you come up and tell me?
Mark knows.
Thank you, Mark.
If you look at the,
Just stay up, Shannon. We love having you up here.
if you look at the few lines below that, the reserve for FTE audit adjustment, reserve for FTE shortfall, all those reserves that Rhonda sets aside, fourth calculation's done, and so those are now shifted back into the unreserved fund balance.
Oh, okay.
So the
over
reserves
this-
that are set aside for those things. have
In
been
case
shifted
we
back
had a
in.
shortfall.
Exactly.
And over the summer, what's left in existing budgets that were not expended or frozen will be returned to the fund balance as well, so.
What, oh, fund balance, increase in student transportation to fund balance too. That's another big one on page 1, 158,000, that's more than the FEFP. The FEFP was 137,000, then we have increase in student transportation to fund balance.
That was because transportation cleaned up some FTE errors, and so they were able to restore some of that
Great,
funding.
wonderful, good for transportation. All right, thanks, I sure feel better.
Madam Chair,
Whew, yes, sir.
I move we accept F8.
Second.
Okay, James
Motion and
Crawford.
second on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0, and we move on to the emergency. We're out of regular session and into emergency session. We have one item, and it's a memorandum of understanding between First Coast Technical College Career Navigator Program and the Putnam County School District.
Renee, you need to come up in case we have any, does anybody? Maybe,
I have no questions.
I have no questions.
We don't have any
So
questions.
moved.
Chair,
you don't have any, Jane?
Madam
No,
Chair?
I know what it is.
Yes,
I move
yes.
we accept the emergency item.
Is there a second to?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second on the floor to approve the emergency item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. We're out of emergency session. Back into regular session. We're up to discussion, old business. Remove from the table. School board meeting minutes for April 7th, 2015, special meeting expulsion workshop meeting, and regular school board meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move we remove from the table.
So move a second.
Is there, I know, there is a second, never mind, you're all getting me crazy now. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. It's off the table. Next item, to approve the school board meeting minutes for April 7th, special meeting, workshop meeting, regular school board meeting.
I
Madam
move-
Chair?
Go ahead.
I move we approve school board meetings, meeting minutes.
Second.
April 7th.
A second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carries 5-0. Number 3, remove item from the table, school board workshop minutes for April 21st.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I move we remove the item from the table for school board workshop minutes for April 21st, 2015.
Second.
Go ahead, second.
Motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries 5-0. Now we're going to see if we're going to approve the school board workshop minutes for April 21st,
Madam Chair.
2015. Yes, sir.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries 5-0. Okay, this is a new business on our discussion agenda board. We have a revision to the opening and closing times at our schools. And I think most of us had talked about this. It's, with staff, it's because of
Madam
our
Chair,
transportation.
board auditors we're just skipping that because she's not here.
What?
No, we're not.
Oh, reports.
We're not there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we're above that.
Oh,
Just above
okay.
that.
Okay, all
Sorry.
right, my bad.
No problem. Okay, so anyway, we've talked to staff. I think we understand. There's no choice here. We can't
Well-
transport the kids if we don't adjust the opening and closing time.
I have some questions.
Sure.
I can understand tweaking 5 minutes, but 20 minutes is a lot. Why wasn't that presented when we voted on it?
Which one was 20 minutes?
Palatka High School and,
In defense of transportation, we voted on starting dates separate from opening and closing times. So we had our opening and closing times, we changed the starting dates, and I think that's what, I think that's what became.
and that's not how I understood
No,
it.
some-
And, that we've got the age level that should be starting the latest is starting the earliest.
But that's what we were asked to do.
You were asked to change it after we voted on it?
Remember, we wanted to start the elementary kids at 8 o'clock. We were told no. So that's why all the elementary schools except for Mellon and Mosley start at 8:50 and get out at 3:05. And the reason Mosley can't is because they're under the grant and they need the extended hour. Mellon, it's a transportation issue with Palatka High School right next door. But
Well-
it also allows us to start all 3 high schools at 7:40, and it also keeps our middle schools within 5 minutes of each other, of the starting times. And I seriously, I really think we need to commend Mr. Simons and his staff for being able to do this.
They had a hard time working
We're
it out.
transporting approximately 6,000 children a day with about 100 buses. And to be able to do that, and I understand Palatka High School's going from about 8 o'clock to 7:40,
Yeah, which means the teachers will have to be there at 7:10.
and which means they get out at 2:25.
Yeah, but when you got kids to drop off and all that kind of stuff. But what my question is, Jim, option A that we voted on had these times.
And
We
and I-
didn't know these times weren't gonna work when we voted on this?
I will say, and I'll take responsibility of this because I oversee transportation, Mr. Simons. We should have put a caveat in the proposal that said, these times may need to be tweaked or adjusted or whatever verbiage you'd like to put in there.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Well, and I'm gonna take responsibility for that, cause I'm not sure, I don't know if Mr. Simons was at the meeting that day.
When that team was meeting and came out with all those options, he actually did send an email that said, here are, and it was over a weekend, because we were trying to get it together because y'all were gonna deal with that. I have some concerns, and he listed them.
I didn't see that.
The main thing they were trying to get in that first round was how many hours a day will these kids be in school, because that was the big issue then. And all of the
Right.
schools, I believe, are in session 6 hours and 15 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
But after transportation looked at it and.
I'm not worried about
put it together,
them.
those were the issues that, that he came up with.
And Crescent City goes from, I think, 7:25 to 7:40. So
Yeah,
they're-
I know. I was just concerned that I was not aware that it had changed until after it had been announced to the schools.
Right, and,
So then my phone started blowing up, and
Well-
I had no defense until I called Pam and found out what was going on.
and again, I'll take responsibility. We should have put something in the school board minutes that said, you know, we are approving this schedule, but it may need, not to advertise it and put it out on the website and all that kind of stuff. And it's nobody else's fault but mine, and I'm gonna accept responsibility.
And having been through this before over the years, I asked Mr. Simons if we could do it that way when I left that meeting, and he said he would have to calculate to be sure, because you only have so many buses and so many drivers. And
I seem to recall, and I could be wrong, Jane, but I seem to recall that being said a couple times.
I must have just missed it.
I knew that was kind of,
Administration part, I don't
Yeah.
know,
I remember hearing it. Maybe it was in between.
you need a motion on this.
because there was so much
It doesn't say that.
talk about the length of the day.
Right.
more than the
It doesn't have a motion.
She says it needs a motion.
If you look,
Yeah.
if you look at the highlighted, we had some, Mr. Simons and I had some communication with Ms. Acock at PAS. We were under the impression that her school day was 7:45 to 2:05 or 2 o'clock. It actually is 7:40 to 2:10, so that's why it's highlighted on this schedule for y'all. And we just wanted to make sure, but please, I hope I'm saying the right thing right now. This is it. It's not gonna change anymore. Now, until the possibility of the bottom 300 schools come out. Okay? I want everybody to be, it could change, because we could have 0 schools in that area. We could have 7 or 8 schools.
When does it come out, do you know?
Sometime this summer. I don't know. I think it's before July. I think we did this July 1st last year, somewhere around, it was quite extensive. We had to go through some changes. I just want everybody to understand that this could happen.
They never give it to you.
And
But rationally, there's nothing we can do about that.
there's nothing we can do about
So
that.
rationally, we just have to make a decision now on this. When that comes, we come back in here
Yes, sir.
Just,
and we say, this is what's been given to us, and then we chart the most successful course we can. So-
And I'll make you this promise. As soon as we find out, you'll find out, and we'll get it on the agenda as quickly as possible.
Mr. Douglas, do we need a motion on this?
yes.
Okay, I make a motion, we accept the 01 opening and closing times revised to meet transportation timeline requirements.
I second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion?
One quick question. I was asked if Miller Intermediate and Crescent City High School kids will be riding the same bus.
I think Rodney, because we talked about that. He's going to have enough money, if he can find the drivers, to hire a couple of additional 4-hour people, I believe, to separate
Okay,
and go from there.
okay.
But
That was a
again, when I
concern.
talk to him about the transportation for St. John's, I will talk to him and make sure, and I'll come back, or I'll email all of you at the same time.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries forward. 3-1, sorry. Moving right along, we're up to reports. I would like to say that our board auditor is not here today. Her brother passed over the weekend. Yeah. He's local, and it's just, it was sudden and unexpected, so she's not here today. So we're not getting a report from her naturally. Next is board member reports. Mr. Wright?
Just a couple quick things. Black Eye Prom went great. Saw all the pictures of the kids. They did a great job out there. Award ceremonies are in full swing. I've enjoyed so much being at them, and it was funny. We were at the top 50 seniors the other night, and I can't remember who I leaned over to, and I said, you know, listen to all those kids' accomplishments. I'm like, man, I'm an underachiever. You know,
That was me, and I agreed with you.
yeah, and Buckles agreed with you. That's what it was. I mean, because you listen to all the great things these students have done, and I know a lot of you, probably read the report that disparages our community and makes it a bad place to live. But I will argue against that 100% and say this is a great place to live because it's not things that make communities great. It's people. And we have great people in this community, and this is a great place to live. And our kids are getting good educations. Those who come, those who work, those who are diligent, those who are disciplined, get great educations here. We can't supplement those values if they don't bring them into the classroom. So I'm thrilled at the award ceremonies. Looking forward to graduation starting here pretty quick. And Madam Chair, that's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Buckles?
After approving this First Coast Tech lease, I just wanted to give you an update on some legislative work that we've got going on, and it really seems like it's working to our advantage that the legislature walked out, and they're going to come back because it gives our people time to work on with the people who develop the budgets on the funding. Anyway, play your music, it's all right. And I'm like Mr. Wright, I enjoyed the 8th grade ceremonies and the award ceremonies, and I've been on a field trip, and I also spent yesterday at field day at James A. Long, and it was hot. So other than that, it is that time of year, and you wish you could go to everything, and you just can't quite do it. So I'm through. That's good.
Ms. Cummings?
There's so many great things going on. To encourage the parents, students, everybody to be involved in all the activities as you prepare for the summer. And I want to thank also the churches that do baccalaureate and host all these great events for our kids, the community. The top 50, we couldn't do it without the, Georgia Pacific, Palaca Daily News, all the great awards these kids get, recognized for is a big deal, and they'll never forget all these wonderful experiences. So thank you for all the community partnerships that, value our students as much as we do. I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Jane?
I've also attended all the award ceremonies, and they've been wonderful. Went to senior show last Friday night. It was hilarious, although I didn't understand most of what was going on since I no longer work there. They had the best time getting up on that stage and performing. Today, the Azalea City Kiwanis awarded all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the county who had straight A's. And we gave 6 8th graders a check that had straight A's all 3 years. So that was great to see all the parents and grandparents there supporting their students. And to follow up on something Terry said about the great students that we have in Putnam County and the great graduates, I just have to put in a plug for a former Palatka High School student, Dr. Morgan Mace. Our attorney, Charlie, knows Morgan very well. She is published now in a pharmacy magazine, and the title of her article is "Which Trisome Kinase Inhibitor to Use First in Chronic Phase Chronic Myelogenous Leukemia." Okay, if y'all know what that means, that's great. I read it.
She got that in 8th grade at Jenkins.
Yeah. She went to Beasley. I read it, and I still don't know what it means, but Morgan works at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston in the Division of Pharmacy in the Department of Leukemia. And she does rounds with some of the top cancer specialists in the world and advises them on what medicines to prescribe their patients. So we have wonderful students that graduate from our high schools in Putnam County.
That's right.
Wow, that is wonderful.
Thank you. I have to echo what everybody says. Putnam County schools offer a fabulous education to those students whose parents value education, or those students who have some significant adult in their life that values education. Unfortunately, we don't have enough of that going on. But I agree. My 4 kids graduated in Interlochen High School. They got good educations. They're doing well, you know. Everything. And I'll tell you folks that there aren't too many of you that aren't in administration. This agenda is a lot of work. I mean, it represents a lot of work by a lot of people. And we just say consent agenda approved, but wow. I mean, I think we're doing great things here in Putnam County. I really do. And I haven't always felt that way, as many of you know. But boy, we all care. I know that. And I am finished because Mr. Buckles asked me not to talk too long.
I did not.
Mr.
I love
Charlie
it.
Douglas, do you have a report for us?
I'll be brief, again, today, all is well with the, so, we're doing great.
Thank you. Mr.
Okay,
Roach.
the substitute. I would like to take this opportunity to thank, again, Mr. and Mrs. Parson. They gave a $250 check for, to be used for students who need to retake the ACT or SAT. And we will make sure it gets put to good use all over the county. Last night, I had the pleasure of attending the Johnny Theobald All-County All-Softball, or Baseball and Softball Banquet at the Ravines. Now, it is for athletics. But I was much more impressed with the academic accomplishments of these kids than anything I saw on the athletic field. Kids with 4.6 GPAs weighted who were all-county 4 years in a row. It proves to us you can be a student athlete, not an athlete student. I'm a former coach for 20 years, but I told my athletes, you are a student first. It's going on in Putnam County. We have it going on. Wonderful ceremony, great-looking kids. We got a lot to be proud of in this county, and that is all I got. And I guess Phyllis is okay. I had one conversation with her today, but she is in Washington with some race to the top stuff. But other than that, things are good.
Okay, I would just like to add, those of you who are prayer people, please pray for Susan and her family. I didn't mention that, but please do.
And our next meeting is 1 o'clock for clarification,
Yes,
correct?
because it's IHS graduation that
Okay.
night, so we have a 1 o'clock
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, just want to clarify.
There
Thank
being
you.
no further business to come before this board, we are adjourned.
Charlie, good to see you.
See you too, Terry.
Yep, you now.
That was easy. We can get that accomplished.
How old is your oldest, Terry?
He's staring me down like.
Yeah, it is. She's throwing all sorts of college ideas around, so we'll have to see. Right now, it looks like Florida State versus